So, good morning and welcome. My name is Reverend Dr. Ron Fox, and I welcome you to the Center for Spiritual Living Space Coast. I was going to say Facebook, Space Coast Sunday service. It's been a while since I've done this. Wow. So, we're glad you're all here. And if there's anybody that's watching or going to watch that has never been to a Center for Spiritual Living, we believe there's one God, many paths to that God, and we're here to love, honor, and support you no matter what your divine path is. And the Center for Spiritual Living Facebook is this Space Coast, is a safe haven for people of all lifestyles, wherever you are and wherever you may be on your journey of faith, you're welcome here. And so we're going to begin this morning, like we always do, with one of our congregants doing a reading. And usually, and then my wife, Becky, who's sitting right here, will open us with a prayer. And I just want to say, usually, Becky and I don't know what the person's going to read, but this time we do. And it's particularly moving and beautiful. So Carol.
I do the prayer.
Thank you.
Wait, hold it. I guess I haven't been here for a while. Because first Becky's going to do the prayer and then Carol's going to do the reading. Oh my God.
We forgive you. Okay, so let's just turn within and just release all of this morning's activities that brought us here, just knowing that right here, right now, this holy light is within us. And as we breathe in and we release our breath, it's a reminder that we are breathing the breath of spirit, breathing in the oneness and the love that spirit provides us. And I'm knowing my oneness in divine spirit, the oneness that connects me with each person who is on this Zoom meeting this morning and who will be on this recording later on. All of us are one in divine spirit. And so I'm knowing that as this morning unfolds, it is unfolding in divine perfection, that this wonderful infinite love is surrounding each and every one of us, emerging as itself, as this wonderful divine love that is spreading this wonderful divine energy in this room, that is making the pathway for Reverend Dr. Ron and his message, that it is expanding its love in Reverend Ron's heart, in his energy this morning, and his message that is going to connect each one of us right here and now. And so I give thanks for everything that Spirit is showing us, that it is providing the space to expand its love through us. And so I release this and just know that it is done. And so it is.
So it is.
Thank you, Becky. My reading today is taken from my memories of 9/11. I moved to Melbourne on 9/14/2001, the first flight out of Seattle for my new job. My husband was in Russia fly fishing on an environmental impact study of Chernobyl's impact on the fisheries in Russia. My first day, 9/14, I walked Melbourne Beach. It rained so hard I hid under the steps to the sea. The thunder echoed in my ears as rain pelted down on me, seemingly from all directions. I heard myself shouting out, "Why, God, why?" Tears ran faster than the pelting rain. Why? In my heart, the voice repeated, forgive, forgive. But I can't forgive, I can't. And the voice replied, I can. Learn from me.
Thank you, Carol. Wow, that is really powerful. As a matter of fact, I'll just say this, that this week, Carol emailed Becky and me, or me, I'm not sure, and said, gee, I wrote something. Do you want me to read on Sunday? And we hadn't even thought about what we were going to talk about. And so when she read that to us, when we got off the phone, I said to Becky, we're going to base the talk on what Carol just read. So I hope the talk lives up to your reading. I titled it Finding the Light. And you know, one of the things that always makes me feel good, I've said this before, is when you read different religions and philosophies, and they all kind of agree. It just is very, very reassuring personally to me. And so I want to start with that. In the Kabbalah, it's written that all things can be holy, that even the most difficult experiences can be holy because God is in every one of our experiences. And you know, one of the things about doing a message or writing is that what we teach isn't all that different. It's about finding another way to say it that it will connect with people. And so Ernest Holmes says something similar. He doesn't use the same words, not even close, but he says, you know, within us, there's something that's indestructible. There's nothing we can do. Can't get rid of it. Can't do anything to destroy it. It's always there, you know, and it's the divine within us that's wherever we are, it is, which is very similar to what the Kabbalah is saying. And Jack Kornfield, who's a Buddhist teacher, says it in a different way, makes a similar point. He said, sometimes the most frequent entry into the sacred is suffering. He says many spiritual journeys begin with us experiencing difficulties in our life. And I want to give you two examples. Both of them come from Rachel Remen in the book Kitchen Table Wisdom. And in one of the, she's an MD who counsels people with serious illnesses. And one of the stories she tells is about a fellow who was a business person, and he tells her he had cancer. He says, you know, before my cancer, my life and the goodness in my life depended on the cookies that I have. And she says the cookies were things like maybe money, power, sex, a big house. But one of the issues is that the cookies kept changing. And so he was always striving. And then he had this cancer. And he goes through counseling with Rachel. And at the end of all his counseling, she brings up the cookies again. And he laughs and he says, damn, maybe life is the cookie. And the other story I want to share with you, I've shared this before a few years ago, I think. It's about a young man who was a tremendous athlete in high school and in college. And in college, he had everything, you know, a young guy could want. He had lots of girls chasing him, and he had lots of recognition and a nice car. And then he got cancer. And they had to amputate one of his legs. And all of a sudden, everything he knew in life was gone. Think of, you know, I really thought about that a lot. You know, he was a kid, you know, a college kid. think any of us, if something that we cherished so much, boom, like that is gone from your life, what would it be? What would it feel like? And he didn't deal well with it. He started to drink. He started to use drugs. He got in one automobile accident after another. And finally, one of his coaches sent him to Rachel for counseling. And she said the first time they met, he was filled with rage and self-pity. And in one of the sessions, I don't know if it was the first or the second one, she gave him a pad. And she said, I want you to draw a picture of your body for me. And he drew a vase. He drew a picture, and he drew a deep crack right down the center of it. And then he took a black crayon and he went over and over and over and over that crack. And he ripped the paper and gave it back to her. And then through the course of time, his anger and his attitude ebbed. Initially, he would read articles about people that lost a limb, and he would get angry because he said, these doctors don't know what they're talking about. And so eventually they challenged him to go meet with some of the doctors. And he did, and he gained respect for them. And he started to visit other patients that had amputations. And one day, he went into the room of a young girl whose family had a history of breast cancer. And her sister that she was closest to had both breasts removed. And this girl decided she was going to do that prophylactically, have both breasts removed. So she did. And he walks into her room and she's so depressed, she won't even look at him. And he tries to talk to her and he tries to tell her jokes. Nothing works. And there's music playing in the background. So the idea hits him. He undoes his artificial leg and he starts hopping around the room to the music. And that made her laugh. She opened up her eyes and she said, well, I guess if you can dance, I can sing. And eventually they became friends. And then they married. And Rachel talks about the last session she had with him. And she took out the picture that he had drawn so much earlier and showed it to him. And he said, it's not finished yet. Let me have it back. And she gave it back to him and she gave him the crayons. And this time he took a yellow crayon and he drew lines radiating from the crack. And he said to her, this crack is what lets the light in. And Rachel wrote, suffering shapes the life force, sometimes into anger, sometimes in blame and self-pity. Eventually, it may show us the freedom of loving and serving life. And I think that's my theme today, how we can all learn and grow and move past the suffering and maybe turn it into wisdom. Wayne Muller is one of my favorite writers. And in one of his books, he says, life isn't a problem to be solved. It's a gift to be opened. And he says, think about this, the color of the sky, the song of a bird, a word of kindness, the sun on our faces, our friends, they're all gifts. And he said, if we become preoccupied with what's wrong, with what's missing, with what's broken, we lose the joy of the gifts. And if we listen to the blessings of a single day, he said, it doesn't remove the sorrow, but it reminds us, It reminds us how strong we can be, even in the midst of suffering. And he said, a single word of gratefulness can transform a moment of sorrow into a moment of peace. I want to give you an example of transforming a moment of sorrow into a moment of peace. And I read about this week in Sports Illustrated, and it's about the quarterback for the Dallas Cowboys, whose name is Dak Prescott. And interestingly enough, when I read it, I saw what I am going to describe to you, because the Cowboys were playing my team, the Giants. And here's what happened. Dak Prescott got tackled and he hurt his ankle. Listen to what happened. He had a compound fracture, dislocation, and his leg was bent sideways. It was an absolutely gruesome injury. And he remembered that a friend had told him that in times of crisis, he should thank God. And so, and again, I saw this as the doctors come running out on the field, because the players are calling for them. The doctors come running out on the field, and the announcers are going, oh no. And they won't even show you a picture of it because it's so gruesome. And his teammates are all around him, patting him on the head and trying to comfort him. And tears are coming down. He's lying there. And what he's saying to himself is, thank you, God. Thank you, God. Thank you, God. Thank you, God. And what he was quoted as saying in the article I read, that was my peace in all of this. In the midst of all of that, he was thanking God. You know, we're all in this together. In some way, we're all united by pain and suffering. And I know you all know what I'm talking about. There's nobody that's going to watch this now or later that hasn't lost somebody, a parent, a friend, somebody who hasn't been divorced, who hasn't been sick, who hasn't had somebody sick. We all have, that's part of life, that we all have it, and it unites us all. We know what it's like. I just two more examples I hadn't even thought to explain, but I read years ago that they've done experiments where somebody gets their finger pricked. There's a part of their brain where the pain is that a part of their brain lights up when they suffer pain. When they do experiments with somebody watching this, the same part of their brain lights up. And so I want to read a quote to you from James Baldwin. James Baldwin wrote, "You think your pain and heartbreak are unprecedented in the history of the world, but then you read. It was books that taught me that the things that tormented me most were the things that connected me with all the people who were alive or who had ever been alive." So I want to read something to you. And I've read this, I think, a couple of years ago, but it makes the point how on some level, even if we don't get it, we're all connected. And it's titled, "Call Me by My True Names" by Thich Nhat Hanh. "Don't say that I will depart tomorrow. Even today, I am still arriving. Look deeply. Every second I am arriving to be a bud on a spring branch, to be a tiny bird with still fragile wings, learning to sing in my new nest, to be a caterpillar in the heart of a flower, to be a jewel hiding itself in a stone. I still arrive in order to laugh and cry, to fear and hope. The rhythm of my heart is the birth and death of all that is alive. I am a mayfly metamorphizing on the surface of the river, and I am the bird that swoops down to swallow the mayfly. I am a frog swimming happily in a clear pond, and I am the grass snake that silently feeds itself on the frog. I am a child in Uganda, all skin and bones, my legs as thin as a bamboo sticks, and I am the arms merchant selling deadly weapons to Uganda. I am the 12-year-old girl refugee on a small boat who throws herself into the ocean after being raped by a sea pirate. And I am also the pirate, my heart yet not capable of seeing and loving. I am a member of the Politburo with plenty of power in my hands, and I am the man who has to pay his debt of blood to my people, dying slowly in a forced labor camp. My joy is like spring, so warm it makes flowers bloom all over the earth. My pain is like a river of tears, so vast it fills the four oceans. Please call me by my true names so I can hear all my cries and laughter at once, so I can see that my joy and pain are one. Please call me by my true names so I can wake up and the door of my heart could be left open, the door of compassion. Rabbi Harold Kushner tells a story of Moses. And I'm going to paraphrase, I'm not trying to quote here. So, and he said, God said to Moses, go to the Pharaoh and tell the Pharaoh, let my people go. Now, I stopped when I was reading this, and I thought, imagine you're just a regular person like all of us, and God comes to you and says, hey, go to the king or go to whoever, go to the president and say, let my people go. What are you going to say? How are you going to deal with it? And how did Moses deal with it? Moses said, who am I to do that? Seems like a pretty reasonable response, doesn't it? God says, go to the Pharaoh and tell him, let my people go. And Moses says, who am I to do that? And God says to Moses, I will be with you. God is with us, even when we feel inadequate. God, Kushner says, God is the light shining in the midst. God is with the person who speaks up because of injustice. God is with the person who's paralyzed with illness. So if we say to God, hey, God, I'm only human, God promises to be with us. And with that, with God at our side, we can be more than human. With God at our side, we can be more than human. So I want to talk to you about what we can do. And I read an article by a lady named Lynn Newman, and it was about what some things we can do when we're going through a trying time. And I want to talk to you about 4 of them, just briefly touch on them. One of them is self-care. And my word, I said, indulge yourself. You know, she said you could take a bath. you could meditate, you could take a walk, you could listen to music, you can read an inspiring book, you can talk to a friend, but whatever it is, just indulge in some self-care. Take care of yourself. However it is, you take care of yourself. Do yoga. However, there are many ways. A second thing she said is allow time and space. Grief needs time. So allow for the grief process to unfold. Years before I ever heard of the Centers for Spiritual Living, when I was married to my first wife, I volunteered to do hospice work. And I did bereavement work. I worked with people who had lost a family member. And everybody grieves differently. Everybody, it takes different amount of time. Some people get over it faster than others. But just know there's no right way and there's no wrong way to grieve. A third thing is to accept sometimes you're gonna have a bad day. In my experience of losing both parents, being divorced, grief to me comes in waves. And I've spoken to so many people that say the same thing. It comes in waves. So just know that every once in a while, you're going to have a bad day and you might just need to be alone. Or again, however you need to be it, do it. And lastly, accept that this too shall pass, that the suffering will pass, and you're going to come out stronger and wiser. I want to end with something. It's from a book called Night by Elie Wiesel. And I just want to explain a little, so put it in a context, what I'm going to read. Elie was in a concentration camp as a young boy. He and his father were together and they suffered greatly. And he watched his dad die. And in 1986, Elie Wiesel was given the Nobel Peace Prize. And what I want to read to you are 3 or 4 paragraphs of the speech he gave the night that he accepted the Nobel Peace Prize. I remember it happened yesterday or eternities ago. A young Jewish boy discovered the kingdom of the night. I remember his bewilderment, his anguish. It all happened so fast. The ghetto, the deportation, the sealed cattle car, the fiery altar upon which the history of our people and the future of mankind was meant to be sacrificed. I remember he asked his father, can this be true? This is the 20th century, not the Middle Ages. Who would allow such crimes to be committed? How could the world remain silent? And now the young boy is turning to me. Tell me, he asks, what have you done with my future? What have you done with your life? And I tell him, I have tried. That I have tried to keep the memory alive. That I have tried to fight those who would forget. Because if we forget, we are guilty. We are accomplices. There is so much to be done. There is so much that can be done. One person, a Raoul Wallenberg, an Albert Schweitzer, a Martin Luther King Jr. One person of integrity can make a difference of life and death. As long as one dissident is in prison, our freedom will not be true. As long as one child is hungry, our life will be filled with anguish and shame. What all these victims need above all is to know that they are not alone, that we are not forgetting them, that when their voices are stifled, we will lend them ours, that while their freedom depends on ours, the quality of our freedom depends on those. So this is what I say to the young Jewish boy, wondering what I have done to his years. It is his name that I speak to you, and that I express to you my deepest gratitude as one who has emerged from the kingdom of night. We know that every moment is a moment of grace. Every hour has an offering. Not to share them would mean to betray them. Our lives no longer belong to us alone. They belong to all those who need us desperately. God bless you. Thank you for being here this morning.